Last week, my viewers chose which would be the next tutorial, and the winner is Welcome to our hive. All right, and so here we are with the Hive mini album. Now, again, this measures 5.5 by 7.5 by 2 inches. This one actually has 5 signatures in it. The one I'm going to make today only has 4 because I didn't have very much paper from my chosen collection to decorate. If you want 5, I'll put the measurement for the hinge in the description. That's the only thing you need to do different besides adding 1 page, and there's 2-page styles so you can choose which one you want to make. I'm using the Paper Studio Amanda collection. It's really pretty. It doesn't have any cut-aparts. There's nothing with words, no cut-aparts. So the mini album I'm going to make is going to be pretty basic, but I think it'll show you how to make the album. I'm going to do a walkthrough of the hive one more time, just so you remember what we've got. So I've got a cut-apart on the front. I've got a piece of cardstock and a couple of layers with the black cardstock and the plain cardstock underneath. So inside, it again, it's a real simple album. It just looks fabulous because the paper is fabulous. So I've got a place for a photo here, and keep in mind, I made this so you could put 4x6 photos on it. Again, this one has words and cut apart, so it looks a little fancy schmancy compared to the one I'm going to make today. So we've got this, and then we've got, so I have 3 pages with pockets and 2 pages without. So I'm going to show you how to make the pocket pages and how to make the plain pages. So the pocket pages have a pocket on the front and on the back, and actually it's a top-loading pocket, and I actually decorated it this way. These were some of the size scraps I had, and then I just put a smaller scrap here. It just was utilizing the scraps that I had. And then in each of the pockets, there is a folder that's 4.25 by 6.25, and that gives you ample room to put more photos. The good thing about these are, not only do you get a lot of bang for the buck with these, but if you had horizontal or landscape photos, you could put them on here. Now I would put all of the landscape photos on one folder, and then the next one might be portrait, whichever works for you. Now again, with this collection, I had stickers, so I was able to decorate it. That's open. But it still gives you lots of room to put in pictures. So, and then it's the same 2-inch spine. So I, again, just made 1 extra hinge, and I'll put that measurement in the tutorial. And the back I decorated a little bit differently. Again, it was all based on scraps. So without any further ado, let's start with the chipboard, and we're going to make the album from cover to the back, and then I'm going to decorate it and then tell you the measurements of what I used to decorate it. So let's get started. All right, we're going to make a mini album. We are going to start with 2 pieces of chipboard that are 5.5 by 7.5, and 1 piece that is 1 3/4 by 7.5. I've made it as wide as 2, but this album isn't going to be chunky, so I went to 1 3/4. And to cover those, I have 2 pieces of cardstock. This is 65-pound weight. I'm using the Recollections brand in black. So this is 7.5 by 9.5. You'll need 2 pieces of that, and 1 that is 5.5 by 9.5. Now there are some times when I'm really careful and I actually I'll do one way and one the other. I've already put permanent double-sided adhesive on the back, and obviously you can see I get mine from scrapbook.com. I'm going to take, and I've already burnished it and put it on, and we're good. I'm going to take it and just do my best to center it on the bottom. I'll take my bone folder and run it around the edge of the chipboard And then I'll use my surface and fold this and burnish, especially on these corners. And then I'll burnish these two sides. Then I'm going to grab my scissors, and in this case, I'm using my long bladed scissors from Fiskars. I've had them for a long time. I'm going to cut across here. I'm going to stay about 1/8 of an inch away from the corner of the chipboard, just because I don't want it to, I'm a little more than 1/8. I don't want it to show. And then you could use double-sided adhesive to be sure that your cardstock is going to adhere to the chipboard, but I don't mind using the glue because you know you're going to cover this. I'm going to take my bone folder, and this is a Dress Your Craft #2 bone folder. It's a non-stick. I don't know if that means it's Teflon, but I like this bevel here, and I like this. I use both of these, and this is the thicker one. I think there's one that's a little thinner. But anyhow, I put my glue right next to the chipboard, so I'm pushing this to smush it up, and then I'll burnish it, and you can see it will come out the side, and I'll clean that up in a second. I'm using the Designer Dries Clear Glue from the Art Glitter Company. I've put washi tape on this because the bottle gets a little grubby after a couple of uses. And then I'm going to grab a paper towel or something and clean it up. I have a chamois, so that doesn't have any lint. So I'll clean that up. And then I'm going to, whoops, before I do that, I'm going to take my bone folder and just push in at those corners. And put glue on right next to the chipboard. You really don't need too much glue. This Designer Dries Clear. You put too much on, it just gets all soupy and you make a mess. You notice I'm cleaning it off with my hand. I just don't want any glue to get in the way. And then I will take my bone folder and just burnish on the very edge, just so it's just a nice, crisp, clean adhesion. All right, now I have another one. I'm going to show you the other method of doing it. Not that it's different, but I'm going to use my scoreboard. And I have 1-inch spacers. You could just cut 1-inch pieces of chipboard if you wanted to. I'm going to peel off the backing. And I do have a little bit of my chipboard showing. Whoops. I'm just going to add a little bit of glue there just to be sure. All right, make sure everything's pushed up against the side. I'll take my chipboard and push it down, and that's all I need my spacers for. So the spacers give me an even 1-inch all around the perimeter of this piece. So I will go ahead and in this case, I'll just cut first, staying 1/8 of an inch away. They do have tools to do this. And I usually don't use, well, I don't have a tool, so I never use it. But I was thinking of getting one just to show everybody how it works. All right, I'm going to start with the long edge and take my glue and go next to the chipboard. Then continue to go to the outside of the cardstock and zigzag it. And then I'll go ahead and use my bone folder and push it right up against the edge. And there we go. And do the same with the short side. You noticed I just took my bone folder and pushed in those teeny little corners. Because these are small, I felt comfortable putting the glue on both of them. And just burnish it real well. And there we go. So we have the two covers. Now, what we're going to do is do the spine. So again, that's 1.75 inches. And you need to cut this piece around 1.5 inches bigger. Now this is going to be about 1/4 inch bigger, so it might look a little lopsided, but that's okay. So this is 1.5 inches, so you can cut a piece of chipboard that's 1.5 inches. And you'll notice here that I used a couple of pieces of my double-sided permanent adhesive to cover the chipboard. But it doesn't matter. All right, making sure everything's pushed up against the edge. Put this on. And there we go. So you see this is a little bigger than that, but that's okay. As long as there's enough room to hold it. All right, I'm going to burnish. Let me burnish here first. Find the edge. And burnish. All right, so in this case, I am just going to, so you see there's rectangles in the corner. Oh, that sun is coming in, isn't it? It was a cool day here in Florida today, and so I don't mind that there was sun coming in. All right, in this case, I am just going to cut across the diagonal. So there's this little trapezoid. I'm going to put a little glue here too. So I just put glue on that top piece. I fold this over, and then I take this and push it right up against the chipboard and then up at the top. So this will go right up against the chipboard, and then I try to flatten this out. So we'll do the same. So there's this little triangle, there's this little rectangle, this little triangle, and I add some glue here. I guess I could put some at the edge there. Go right up against the edge, pull it down, and push this so it's up against the chipboard, and then pull this out. So yeah, there's some glue that smears, but it's not a big deal. There we go. Now I'm going to burnish this because I want this to stay flat up against the chipboard. I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut this and miter it. I don't need much here. But over here, this one, I'm going to miter. Go right up against the chipboard at the top, put the blade of the scissors and cut at an angle. And do the same with the bottom, or the top, I guess it doesn't matter. And do it here. So you see, I just get slivers. It's not a lot. All right, now that I have this, I'll grab my scoreboard again. I'm going to do the bigger piece. I'm going to add glue about 1/8 of an inch away from where that bump is, which is from the chipboard on the other side. All right, sometimes I'll add a piece of tape, but I know it's going to stay. All right, I'm going to take this and put it up against the edge. And then I'm going to take this. So this is, you can see the right side facing up, and here we have the right side facing up. We're going to put it right next to the chipboard. And I'm pushing against the top, so both these pieces are against the top of the chipboard, of the scoreboard. And then I'll burnish. What I want to do is make sure these two pieces of cardstock are flat and even. So now I'll do the same with this side. I'll add my glue. I want to get too close. And I'll go, whoops, I'm getting it down on my. And then I will put that, so it's at the top, turn it over, and burnish. So there we go. Now we have a book that is covered. Now I like this cover. It's sort of a clean look to it, and it's easy to cover because we know this is 1 3/4. So when you cover it with paper, you cut the paper 1 3/4. It's going to have a little bit of a this showing because now we folded it over, but it makes it look nice and good. And even if you wanted to add something and wrap it around, you still could. All right, now that we've got that, now we're going to make a hinge. All right, I'm using my scoreboard. This is an 8.5 by 6 7/8. Look, 6 7/8 piece of cardstock. It's 65-pound weight. Putting the 8.5 side at the top of the scoreboard. And I am going to score at 2, 2.5, 3, 3 3/8, 3 7/8, 4 3/8, 4 3/4, 5 1/4, 5 3/4, 6 1/8. 1, 2, 3, 6 5/8, and 7 1/8. So what I have is 4 sets of hinges with a gusset in between. The hinges are all 1/2 inch, and the gusset is 3/8 of an inch. There's nothing in this book that's going to be very chunky. I could even have gone 1/4 of an inch, but there's no reason to. It gives you room to put something dimensional if you wanted to. So again, there's 4 hinges and 3 gussets. I'm turning this upside down so the bumpy side's facing up. You can see there is a hinge here and a hinge. We know that because they're 1/2 inch. So I'm going to fold one hinge onto the other. I'm going to make sure the sides are lined up. And then I'll burnish. And then I'm going to fold the next hinge. And the way I know it's the next hinge is I'm going to skip a score line, and fold. Now, if you were to fold at the wrong spot, it's not a big deal. You still can use it. Just go back and fold it. Skip, skip, fold, and burnish. And one more skip, skip, and fold in between those two 1/2-inch pieces. All right, now we're going to have the bumpy side facing down. And you can see it's already getting trained and the hinge is already figuring out what we want it to do. We're going to train it a little bit further. I'm going to hold this and I'm going to pull this towards me. So this first one that we scored or that we burnished is going to want to come up and make a mountain. So I'm going to have it come up and then I'm going to squeeze it and burnish it just with my fingers. Going to do that. I'm going to sort of hold this with my fingers and hold this with my thumb, pull it towards me, and it's going to create another mountain and just finger burnish it. Going to do that for the next one. And then the final one. So now we've got this trained even more. We're going to pull it all towards me so the 3/8 of an inch gussets are going to stay on the table, but the hinges are going to pop up. So now that I've got that, I look at it and it looks like it's even. Now, if it's wonky, like it's one piece that's bigger than the other, just reburnish it. If you have to, do it again. It's just paper. So now I'm going to fold this, take my bone folder, and burnish this. Going to move these hinges away from me, take my bone folder, and burnish. So now these are trained. They are where I want them to be, except now I'm going to glue them. So we'll do one at a time. I'm going to take my glue. I'm not going to glue right next to the edge. I'm going to stay about 1/4 of an inch so it doesn't seep out. And I'm going to zigzag as much of this hinge as I can, just one side. You don't need to do both. That's ample glue to hold it together. But just to make sure it stays good and tight right next to what would be the bottom of the hinges, I'll just run a bead of glue close to the edge here. Then I'm going to turn this upside down, squeeze it. Now, if you feel glue coming out, clean your hands off. But since I didn't go close to the edge, I didn't. So there is one, and that wants to stay exactly where I told it to. So we'll do another one. Zigzag. Make a bead at the top. Turn it upside down. Squeeze and burnish. We're going to use our bone folder in a second. We're just finger burnishing. We'll do the other one, number 3. And burnish. And another one. I really didn't get close to the top, so this bead of glue will help me. And burnish. Now I don't use my nails because it scratches the paper, so I try not to. But I don't have very long nails. If you do, you're just going to have to be careful. Now I'll take my bone folder and go to the edge. Now again, if glue seeps out, clean it up, but I know it won't because I didn't go too close to the edge. I'm going to burnish that really good. We're distributing the glue and making sure it will adhere to the paper. I'll pull these hinges towards me and do the same. I'm using the edge of my bone folder. And look at that. There is my hinge system. So you can see that's the top of it. Okay, so now I used to take a piece of cardstock and put this on, and you still can if you want this to be a little sturdier, but this will help sturdy it up. And this, this is an inch down, and this is going to cover any gaps of the chipboard. So I'm going to place it on there and just figure out where it's going to be once I add glue. It's pretty even. because this is 3/4 of an inch wide, I know I can have 1/4 of an inch from the bottom, from the bottom of my hinge or spine to the bottom of my hinge, and 1/4 of an inch from the top of the hinge to the top of the spine. I also know that I can have 1/4 of an inch from my of the chipboard showing to where that first hinge is going to be, and same for the other side. It's a little bit more than 1/4 of an inch, but you get the idea. And if it's not exactly 1/4 of an inch, it's okay. If one side is over to the other, that's okay. You don't want it wonky though. You want it straight up and down. All right, I'm going to hold it in my hand sort of loosely because I want this to fold. I want it to sort of create like a U, like that. So I can take my glue and go right on this area in between, like the bottom of where the hinge is. The hinge is facing down. I'll do that to all 4 of these hinges. So we have 4 hinges and 3 gussets, and these 2 pieces on the side, just for lack of a better term, we'll call wings. I'm going to zigzag. Again, we'll stop at 1/4 of an inch. Now, if there's any area where you use more glue, this is it, because this is the hinge. This is what keeps everything together. Any areas where I feel like need a little more, I'll just go back. Now I'm going to turn this upside down, and I've already figured out where I want it to go. So we wanted 1/4 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch all around. So I'm just going to lay it down. Here's when I can move it because it's liquid adhesive, and just eyeball it and make sure it's straight. You want this as straight as possible because if this part gets wonky, everything's going to be wonky. So take your time here. Now, once I placed it and I feel like it's good, since there's 3 gussets, I'm going to start with the center one. I'm going to take my finger. Now, you could use your bone folder. I would use like this part of your bone folder, but I like to use my finger because it's the right width. I guess I have fat fingers. And I go from the top of my gusset to the bottom and the bottom up to the middle. And it helps distribute that glue. Now I'll go over to the right and move my hinge over to the left and do that next gusset on the right side. Now I'm going to move this hinge over to the right, move this hinge over to the right, and take this gusset on the far left side and burnish that. When you move the hinge, you might feel the paper moving, which is fine. All right, and then once I get that down, I'm going to burnish. Move them all over and burnish. And you see the wing wants to come up because we haven't glued that down yet. But we're going to do that now. It's a nice parallel line. So I'm going to take my glue and I'm going to zigzag it because I want it to adhere to this chipboard. I'm also going to take a line and go right next to it. And then I'm going to do a line of glue on the other side on the cover and then zigzag a little on this side of the cover. Again, staying about 1/4 of an inch away. Now we'll go on the outside here and just zigzag a little. And then I'll pull this down and take my bone folder. I guess I could use my finger again, but I want to get right up to the edge of this hinge and distribute the glue. And then distribute the glue and burnish this real well. And I'm going to go right at that indentation where the cover and the spine meet and use this rounded part of my bone folder. Don't dig into it with the tip. Use the rounded part. And just burnish. And burnish real good. All right, I'm going to turn it over because I like to do it this way. Move all of my hinges over and do the same with this. Now this glue is starting to dry. That's why it wasn't as easy, but I'll take a bead of glue and go down next to the side, zigzag on my chipboard, Oops. Make a line of glue, 1/8 of an inch from that indentation. Zigzag a little. I don't know why I zigzag. I could do swirls, circles, but it doesn't matter. All right, take my bone folder and go from the top to the middle and from the bottom to the middle and just burnish that real well. And then take the edge of my bone folder and burnish. If any glue seeps out anywhere, clean it up. You don't want any marks. And then use that rounded part of your bone folder and burnish. Every time I go back and forth, I'm pushing down just a little, making sure this is open, whoops, which it does. I'll burnish, turn it over this way. Okay, now I'm not going to close it. Well, I'll close it once. I'm not going to let it dry this way because that might cause a little bump here. So I'm going to burnish that. I'm just going to let it dry this way while I start working on the pages. So we are going to need 2 pieces of 10 by 7.5 cardstock and 2 pieces that are 11 by 10. I'm using 8.5 by 11 and 12 by 12. So let me grab those and I'll show you how we're going to make pages for this book. All right, so this is the 11, what did I tell you? 11 by 10. And we're going to work with that first. So with the 11 inside at the top of the scoreboard, score it at 1/2 inch, score it at 5.5, and at 10.5. Okay, this score line that we just scored, we're going to rotate so that's at the top of the scoreboard. And I want you to score at 7. Okay, we're going to cut some of this off and we're going to miter some of this and we're going to leave some of it. What we're going to cut off is we're going to cut off this 1/2 inch piece right down to here. So don't go any further than there. And we're going to cut off this 1/2 inch piece. Now, I do like to put it in my trimmer to cut, but I'm not going to do that because I'm just going to show you how I cut it with my scissors. We're also going to miter. So this is going to become our pocket. So we're going to miter this here and here, here, and here. And when I say miter, I mean cut at an angle. If we didn't cut this at an angle, this piece would hit, it just wouldn't flow as smooth. All right, so I'm going to cut this. And again, like I say, I'm going to go at miter. I usually put it back in my paper trimmer and cut right on the line. But let's see how straight of a piece I can cut. That didn't look too bad. While I've got this, I'm going to go ahead and miter this piece. I'll miter over here. So you see, it's just a small triangle piece I'm taking off. I'll miter here right up to that cross where all those pieces connect. And then I'll cut this. And there we go. All right. Let's fold and burnish on our score lines. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to fold this and glue these 2 tabs to here. That is simple. So we'll add glue on this 1/2 inch piece and on this 1/2 inch piece. I'll fold it down and I will burnish that. Now I'm going to fold this while that's still wet and just try to flatten it out by burnishing it some more. So here we have a piece that not only is it going to have a pocket in it on the front side and a pocket on the back, but this will also be a pocket page. So we'll have a top-loading pocket. So let's do that with the other piece. I'm going to do that with you real quick because it's only one piece. So again, 11-inch side at the top, score it at 1/2 inch, 5.5, 10.5, rotate it, score it at 7. And then I'm going to miter and trim. So I'll cut to the X, I'll miter here, cut here, and then cut along this score line straight as possible. That's why I like these long bladed scissors. It helps me get a straight cut. I'm going to turn this over so I can do it this way. And there we go. Fold and burnish. On the score lines. Fold our little tabs in. And add glue to the tabs. Fold this in. And burnish. And burnish. And there we go. Okay, and we're going to make 2 pages with 10 by 7.5. So with the 10-inch side at the top, score it 5, rotate it so the 7.5 side is at the top, and score it at 7. So we will take our scissors, or you can use your paper trimmer, and I'm going to cut just one of these 1/2-inch tabs off. So cut up to that score line, and then miter and miter. And then I've already scored this one, so I'm going to cut this on our score line, and miter and miter. All right, we are done with the scoreboard. One at a time. So I'm going to fold and burnish on our score lines. And I'm not going to glue this yet. We'll glue it when we put it in the book, which we'll do just about now. So I'm going to fold and burnish on this score line. All right, so we have 2 pieces that have this 1/2-inch tab inside and 2 pieces that have pockets. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my cover with the hinges. And now that this is dry, I'm going to fold it and make sure it's working real well, which it is. Okay, and I'm going to take my bone folder and just burnish it. Okay, and I like to start from the back. So I'm going to take one of the folders with the 1/2-inch tab. What I'm going to do is take my glue and put glue on my hinge. So I'm going to put it on the top 2/3 have our hinge almost all the way across. So zigzag. And then I'll take this and put it right next to that. Add glue to this bottom piece. And fold this over. Now, while it's still a little wet, I'm going to wiggle this and make sure it's straight at the back and parallel to the side here. And when I open it, it's going to be straight. So it's important to get this first one straight because we're going to base the other ones off of that. So there's that one. Now I'm going to do a pocket. And because I don't have that 1/2 inch tab here, we're going to have to add a bead of glue. So I'm going to put glue on the top 2/3 of both sides of the hinge. You have to be careful you don't lay it flat. And then I'm going to just add a bead of glue about 1/2 inch up from the bottom. So I'll put this right next to there. Now when I fold this down, it's not going to go all the way to the bottom of the hinge. I've got just about 1/8 of an inch. You can have anywhere from 1/8 to 1/16 of an inch. If you go flat down to the bottom, that pocket will catch when you're moving it. So just don't go all the way to the bottom. And I'm having it line up with this first one. And then when it's in place, I'll go ahead and burnish. And burnish here. All right, and then I'll take that folder. Oops, I need more glue here. Gonna have to burnish that again. So let me put this down. Line that up. Burnishing there. Okay. And add glue. Now, I didn't really need this 1/2 inch tab. I could have just glued the bottom of it. But since I was able to, I went ahead and did it. And burnish. And then this last one with the pocket, we'll do it the same way. So I put it next to it, I pull it back just a little bit. Whoops, you know what I forgot to do? And there we go. Okay. Oops, I got a little glue there. But this is just a sample, so I'm okay. All right, so there we go. There is our book with our 4 pages. Now I've got a couple more pieces that we want to cut, so let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so I cut these out of 8.5 by 11 papers, and I could get one 6 1/4 by 8.5, and then out of the other side, I cut 4.5 by 6 3/4. There was just a little sliver and this piece. Now, if you have small tags, you can use this to back the tags. Otherwise, just put it in your scrap pile, and then these 2 pieces will need. So this is, you'll need 4 of these that are 4.5 by 6 3/4. We're going to round the edges. These will go inside our hidden pockets. These we're going to put with the 8.5 side at the top and score at 4.5. And what these will be are little folders that we'll put inside each of the pockets. So you'll need 4 of those. And again, the measurement is 8.5 by 6.25. You're going to put the 8.5 side at the top and score at 4.25. Now you can cover all 4 sides of these, and this is a good spot to put 4 by 6 photos, or you can just cover the front and leave the insides and the back to put your 4 by 6 photos. That is entirely up to you. I will go ahead and put them in the book. I'll fold and burnish. So I'll put it in our little pockets just so it stays there until such time that I am decorating that. And then these, like I said, these we're going to take and round the corners. I'm just using my, I think it's a 7mm corner rounder. But I'll round the corners with this. And if I don't have coordinating paper, I will just use white cardstock. On the Honeybee collection, I had actually a piece that was 6 inches, and then I had a little piece at the bottom that I used. So we'll round the corners and put these in the pockets just for safekeeping until we decorate. To make a back flap and a pocket for the back inside cover. So I have a piece of cardstock that is 6.5 by 3 with the 6.5 side at the top. I'll score it at 1/2 inch and it's 6, rotate it and score it at 1/2 inch. And then this is 5 3/8 by 6. This is going to be a flap. It's a little bit smaller than the book just so it doesn't get in the way. The 6.5 side goes to the top and score it at 1/2 inch. And for this, I do like to take corner rounder and round the corners opposite our score line. And let's go ahead and burnish the 2 pieces. So this, I'll just cut it a miter first and fold that over and burnish. And for this pocket with the 3 score lines, I'm going to miter the top, so just cut it a slight angle and then cut across. There's an X caused by the score line. We're just going to cut across it. And let's fold and burnish on our score lines for these 2 pieces. All right, we will put these in the book. So I'm just going to add glue to this bottom flap first for the pocket. And I'm going to put that in, line it up with the outside corner. If it's too close to where the book folds, you'll want to, you don't want it to get in the way of where the book closes. So there is that. Now, just as precaution, just in case just to help our paper go in smooth, I'm going to take some tape. So regular tape, Scotch tape, I suppose, and put that down on our little flap there. That'll help things go into the pocket. And add a little glue to both of these tabs and fold that over and burnish. And then this piece, we'll add glue to the 1/2 inch tab. I'm going to turn this sideways just to make it easy. And just sort of center this on the page. I like to have this a little bit smaller than the actual pocket That way, if you have a lot of things here, it doesn't get hung up when you try to close the book. Now you could put a small magnet, or you could have the two circle closures with a brad. You could have a swivel tab, or you could just leave it without any kind of closure. All right, I'm going to do a walkthrough of this. And as you can see, the cover is very simple. Again, I had no cut aparts, so I used an arch die. Now I also did cut out using a die. It says Dream. I don't know. First of all, I don't know if I would like the sentiment that says Dream, and I don't know if you can see it. So right now, I don't think I'm going to put it on. The measurements on the cover to decorate. So I think I already told you, but the metallic is 5 3/8 by 7 3/8. The next layer is 5 1/8 by 7 1/8. The black is 4 7/8 by 7 7/8. The next layer is 4 5/8 by 7 5/8. And then this arch, just the bottom is 4 inches, just so you have an idea. But again, if you have cut aparts, use cut aparts. So to cover the inside front cover and the outside back cover, it is going to be 5 3/8 by 7 3/8. I also used some white paper. I inked around the edges with orange just so it would match with this. This one is 4 1/2 by 6 1/2, and then the layer inside is 4 3/8 by 6 3/8. I glued it just on 3 sides and added just a little tuck spot. All right, so to decorate the pockets, and those measurements are all the same, it's 4 7/8 by 2 7/8, and then you can use a 4 7/8 by, it can be as short as 4 1/2 or as long as 6 7/8. These folders I just kept inside. I was playing around whether I wanted the blue or the orange, and I just kept with the orange after this. But the white layer is 4 1/8 by 6 1/8, and then the inside is 4 by 6. So if you want to put a photo on, you're going to need to cut it down, or don't put this piece on here and just put the photo on the white, because then there will be a very thin white border just like that. Or you could just opt to not even have this in and just keep it with the black, and then you can put your photo in. You'll have 1/4 inch of the black cardstock showing. So that's it for those pages. This is 4 7/8 by 6 7/8. And then the hidden pocket for the top is 6 1/4 by 4 1/2. And then the inside paper is 4 3/8 by 6 5/8. So there's 4 of those. I think I cut it a little bigger to start with, but that is what I ended up with. So we'll take a quick walkthrough. So there's that. Here's this page, and I mixed and matched these. Yeah, I like this paper. And don't forget, so I was running out of paper. You could just use white cardstock or a single solid color cardstock for that if you wanted to. There we go with that. There we go with that. And then here is the pocket. I just have a magnet closing it. You could put another folder, but I just put in just a photo mat. I added just a couple of extra photo mats here because you could put photo mats on the solid pages if you wanted to. So there is that. It would have been nice if I had some cut aparts to go along with it, but I didn't. And like I said before, so this is 4 pages. You could have one extra page if you wanted to, but as I said, I didn't have that many scraps. So that is how to make the Welcome to Our Hive mini album. That was part of a vote that I had on my channel. I showed a couple of different mini albums that I had made, and I let everyone decide what they wanted to see. Let me just go over anything different in this one. This again is a cut apart. I did cut it down, so it's 3 3/4 by 5 3/4. I put it on black cardstock, and this is actually raised. I cut out a piece of chipboard that's the same measurement as the cut apart, 3 3/4 by 5 3/4, but it's underneath, so there's a little bit of layering. I inked around that with black just so you wouldn't see. This is similar to that, but I did have a cut apart to put up here, and of course I had cut aparts and stickers and lots of different things that I could use with that Honeybee album. And then of course here was cut aparts, and that's why it just has a little more interest with cut aparts and stickers. But it was a great way to use up bigger scraps that you may have after you've made another album. So that is what I wanted to show you today. Thank you so much for watching. Have a fabulous day.